Hello, everyone. Today I want to speak to the woman who dares to walk alone, to the woman who, despite the noise of the world, chooses to step away and carve her own path. Walking alone is not about isolation, it is about independence. It is about listening to the voice within, the one that says you were made for something greater, something uniquely yours. The courage to choose solitude is a profound act of self-discovery and empowerment in a world that often equates busyness with success and connection with fulfillment. Solitude at its core is not about loneliness or isolation. It is about creating space to be fully present with yourself. It is a deliberate choice to step away from the noise and demands of the external world to reconnect with your inner voice, values, and purpose. Choosing solitude requires bravery because it means confronting not only the expectations of society, but also the truths we often avoid within ourselves. Many fear solitude because it feels uncomfortable. In the quiet, there is no distraction from our thoughts, fears, or insecurities. The absence of external validation can make us feel untethered, as though we've lost our sense of direction. But this discomfort is exactly why solitude is so powerful. When we resist the urge to fill the silence, we begin to uncover parts of ourselves that have been buried under the demands of daily life. In solitude, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what do I truly want? What do I value? When am I afraid to face these questions, though difficult, are the foundation of personal growth and self-awareness. Choosing solitude is also an act of rebellion in a culture that glorifies constant connection and productivity. The world often tells us that our worth is tied to how busy we are, how many people we know, or how much we achieve. Taking time for solitude disrupts this narrative. It says, I am enough as I am. Without the need for external validation, it allows us to step off the treadmill of comparison and tune into our own unique rhythm. One of the greatest gifts of solitude is clarity. When you strip away the distractions and expectations of others, you can see your life more clearly. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become simpler because you are making them from a place of alignment with your own values, not from the pressures of outside influences. Solitude creates the mental and emotional space needed to process your experiences, reflect on your goals, and envision the future you truly desire. Solitude also builds resilience. When you choose to spend time alone, you learn to rely on yourself in a way that fosters independence and self-confidence. You realize that you are capable of finding your own answers, solving your own problems, and being your own source of strength. This self-reliance is not about rejecting others, but about becoming whole within yourself so that your relationships and connections are built on authenticity rather than need. The courage to choose solitude is the courage to choose yourself. It is about honoring your own needs, listening to your inner voice, and giving yourself permission to step back and breathe. In solitude, you find not only peace, but also the power to live a life that is true to who you are. It is a sacred act of self-care and self-respect, reminding you that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for everything else. Resilience in the face of vulnerability is one of the most transformative qualities a person can cultivate. Vulnerability often feels like an open wound, a raw exposure of who we are at our most honest and unguarded. It is the voice inside that whispers, what if I'm not enough? What if they see my flaws? What if I fail? These questions can paralyze us, making vulnerability seem like a weakness to hide rather than a strength to embrace. But what if we reframed vulnerability as a doorway, a threshold that leads us to courage, growth, and resilience? To face vulnerability is to face life itself. We cannot truly live without encountering moments that challenge our sense of security and self-worth. It might be stepping into an unfamiliar room where you don't know anyone, taking a risk on a dream others think is too big, or opening your heart to someone without the guarantee of reciprocation. Vulnerability is not just the act of being exposed. It is the bravery of showing up anyway. Resilience grows in those moments. It is not about avoiding vulnerability, but about leaning into it, trusting that even if the outcome is uncertain, you will find the strength to navigate through it. Resilience is built when we acknowledge the discomfort, sit with the fear, and still choose to take the next step. It's in these moments that we learn we are capable of more than we imagined. Society often teaches us to hide vulnerability, to armor ourselves with perfectionism, indifference, or control. But these defenses don't protect us, they isolate us. They create walls that keep us from connection, from authenticity, and from truly experiencing life. Resilience begins when we lower those walls and allow ourselves to be seen, flaws and all. Imagine a tree standing tall in the middle of a storm. The winds howl, the rain pelts against it, and its branches sway under the weight of the weather. That tree is vulnerable. It cannot stop the storm from coming, but it is also resilient. Its roots are deep and it bends without breaking. The storm doesn't destroy it, it strengthens it. Vulnerability is the storm and resilience is the tree. What many don't realize is that vulnerability and resilience feed each other. Vulnerability invites us to take risks, to step into the unknown, and to pursue what matters most. Resilience, in turn, gives us the ability to rise after a fall, to learn from the setbacks that vulnerability sometimes brings. Together, they form the foundation of a meaningful and courageous life. To face vulnerability and build resilience, we must start small. Share your thoughts in a meeting, even if you're afraid they might be dismissed. Ask for help when you need it, even if it feels uncomfortable. Admit when you don't have all the answers. Each of these acts strengthens your ability to navigate the next challenge. Resilience in the face of vulnerability is not about eliminating fear or failure. It's about growing through them. It's about choosing to stand in your truth, knowing that your worth is not tied to the outcome, but to the courage it took to try. The power of self-belonging lies in the profound realization that true acceptance begins within. It is the unshakable understanding that you do not need to mold yourself to fit someone else's expectations, chase approval, or seek validation from the outside world. Self-belonging is a reclamation of your worth, a declaration that you are enough exactly as you are. It is both liberating and transformative, allowing you to stand firm in your truth no matter what storms surround you. The concept of belonging has traditionally been tied to others, the need to fit in, to feel accepted by a group, to be liked or loved. While these connections are important, they often come with the unspoken demand to compromise pieces of yourself to gain approval. You might find yourself shrinking your voice, altering your appearance, or hiding parts of your identity to align with what others expect. Over time, this disconnection from your authentic self leads to a deep sense of emptiness. Self-belonging challenges this narrative. It says, what if I belong to myself first? This question invites you to stop searching for external validation and start cultivating an internal sense of home. When you belong to yourself, you are no longer at the mercy of others' opinions. Criticism doesn't define you, rejection doesn't devastate you, and praise doesn't inflate you. Your worth is no longer conditional on external factors. It is rooted in your own unwavering belief in who you are. But belonging to yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself from others. On the contrary, it allows you to form deeper, more authentic relationships. When you accept yourself fully, flaws, quirks, and all, you give others permission to do the same. There's no longer a need to wear masks or play roles to fit in. You show up as your true self, and in doing so, you attract connections based on honesty and mutual respect. Self-belonging is not a destination, but a practice. It requires you to meet yourself with compassion, especially during moments of self-doubt or failure. It means silencing the inner critic that tells you you're not good enough and replacing it with a kinder, more understanding voice. It also means setting boundaries, choosing to walk away from people, situations, or environments that demand you betray yourself to stay. The journey to self-belonging is not always easy. It often involves unlearning societal messages that tell you your worth depends on your achievements, appearance, or relationships. It requires courage to stand apart, to make choices that align with your values, even if they go against the grain. Yet, with each step, you grow stronger. You realize that the person you've been waiting for to accept and love you unconditionally has been with you all along. The power of self-belonging is its ability to anchor you in a world that is constantly changing. When you belong to yourself, you carry your sense of worth wherever you go. You become your own source of strength, and from that place you are free to live boldly, love deeply, and walk unapologetically in your truth. Silencing the noise of judgment is one of the greatest acts of self-liberation. Judgment is everywhere. It echoes of others, lingers in the subtle looks they give, and reverberates in our own minds as self-doubt. It tells us to stay small, to conform, and to avoid taking risks. But the truth is, no matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. Learning to silence this noise is not about ignoring feedback or shutting yourself off from the world. It is about deciding whose voice truly matters. The first step to silencing judgment is understanding where it comes from. Judgment often stems from the fears, insecurities, or unfulfilled desires of others. When someone criticizes your choices, it is often a reflection of their own limitations, not a reflection of your worth. Recognizing this helps you separate constructive feedback from unnecessary negativity. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind, and not every voice is worth listening to. We must confront the judgment that lives within us. The harshest critic is often the one in our own heads, whispering doubts and fears. This inner voice amplifies external judgment, making us second-guess ourselves or feel ashamed of who we are. Silencing the noise of judgment requires taming this inner critic by replacing self-criticism with self-compassion. Instead of asking, what will they think, ask, what do I think? Instead of seeking approval from others, seek alignment with your own values and goals. It's important to remember that judgment is inevitable, especially when you dare to live authentically. People are quick to judge what they don't understand or what makes them uncomfortable. If you're making bold moves, breaking stereotypes, or stepping out of the status quo, judgment is almost guaranteed. But here's the liberating truth. Their opinions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live a life that feels true to you, not one that pleases everyone else. Setting boundaries is also essential in silencing judgment. Surround yourself with people who encourage your growth and understand your worth. Their voices can act as a counterbalance to the noise of negativity. At the same time, limit the influence of those who are overly critical or unsupportive. Protecting your mental and emotional space is not selfish. It is necessary for your well-being. Silencing judgment doesn't mean you'll never hear it again. The noise will still be there, but you'll learn to turn the volume down. You'll realize that you are the one holding the remote, deciding which voices to amplify and which to ignore. This takes practice. It means pausing when you feel judged, asking yourself if the criticism holds any truth, and then releasing it if it doesn't serve you. Silencing the noise of judgment is about reclaiming your power. It's about deciding that your voice, your dreams, and your truth are more important than the fleeting opinions of others. When you prioritize your inner guidance over external judgment, you become unstoppable. You walk through life with confidence, knowing that your worth is not up for debate. Fear is a natural and inevitable part of life. It rises up in moments of uncertainty, challenges, or change, whispering warnings of failure, rejection, or discomfort. For many, fear becomes a barrier, holding them back from their potential and paralyzing their progress. But what if fear wasn't the enemy? What if instead of resisting it, we learn to use it? Turning fear into fuel is not about eliminating it, but transforming it into a driving force for growth and action. Fear often signals that we are stepping into uncharted territory. It arises because we care about success, about impact, about becoming more than we were before. This is the paradox of fear. While it feels uncomfortable, it is also a sign of opportunity. The key is to reframe fear not as a stop sign, but as an invitation to move forward. When we view fear as a challenge rather than a threat, it becomes a motivator instead of a deterrent. The first step to turning fear into fuel is acknowledging it. Too often we try to suppress or ignore our fears, thinking that admitting them makes us weak. But fear thrives in silence. When we name our fears and confront them head on, they lose some of their power. Saying, "I am afraid of failing" or "I fear being judged" brings clarity. It allows us to see fear for what it is, a reaction, not a reality. Once acknowledged, fear can be broken down. What exactly are you afraid of? Is it a fear of not being good enough? Of making a mistake? Of the unknown? Often the act of dissecting fear reveals that it's not as insurmountable as it initially seems. For example, if you're afraid of failure, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? When you walk through the possible outcomes, you realize that even the worst case scenarios are often manageable. This clarity transforms fear into something actionable. Fear can also be reframed as excitement. Physiologically, fear and excitement feel remarkably similar: racing hearts, shallow breaths, heightened senses. The difference lies in perspective. Instead of saying, "I'm scared to take this leap," try saying, "I'm excited about this opportunity." This simple shift changes fear from something paralyzing to something energizing. Action is the most powerful antidote to fear. Even the smallest steps forward can transform anxiety into momentum. Each action chips away at the power of fear, proving that you are capable of facing it. Over time, you build confidence not from the absence of fear, but from the repeated experience of moving through it. Fear can also serve as a teacher. It highlights what matters most to us and shows us where we have room to grow. By listening to fear rather than running from it, we gain insights about our desires, values, and aspirations. Instead of avoiding fear, we can use it to guide us toward the areas where we have the most potential for transformation. Turning fear into fuel is about shifting your relationship with it. When you face it with courage, curiosity, and determination, it ceases to be a roadblock and becomes a source of energy. It propels you forward, reminding you that every great achievement lies on the other side of fear. Writing your own narrative is one of the most empowering acts you can undertake in life. Too often, people allow others, society, family, friends, or even circumstances to dictate their story. They fall into roles they didn't choose, follow paths they didn't design, and live lives that feel disconnected from their true selves. Taking ownership of your narrative means reclaiming the pen, stepping into the role of author, and crafting a life that aligns with your values, dreams, and authenticity. Your narrative is the lens through which you view your life. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and where you're headed. For many, this story is shaped by external forces. Expectations from society might tell you what success looks like, what kind of job you should have, what your relationships should be, or how you should define happiness. Well-meaning friends or family may project their fears or hopes onto you, influencing your choices. Over time, these external voices can drown out your own, leaving you living a script you didn't write. Taking control of your narrative begins with self-awareness. It requires you to pause and ask yourself some fundamental questions. What do I truly want? What matters most to me? What story am I currently living? And is it the one I want to continue? These questions may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've been following a path that isn't truly yours. But discomfort is often the starting point of transformation. As you begin to write your own narrative, it's important to let go of the stories that no longer serve you. These might be limiting beliefs you've internalized over time. I'm not smart enough to succeed. I'm too old to start something new. I don't deserve happiness. These narratives, though powerful, are not permanent. You have the ability to rewrite them, replacing self-doubt with self-belief, fear with courage, and hesitation with action. Writing your narrative also means embracing imperfection. No story is flawless, and no journey is without challenges. It's easy to get caught up in comparing your life to the curated, polished versions of other stories that you see on social media or in your community. But remember, your journey is unique, and its value doesn't lie in how it looks to others, but in how it feels to you. Your narrative should also reflect your evolved self. Just as a book progresses through chapters, your life will change. Who you are at 20 is not who you will be at 40, and that's a beautiful thing. Writing your narrative means staying open to growth, allowing yourself to pivot, and giving yourself permission to dream new dreams as you evolve. Writing your own narrative is an act of courage and self-love. It's a declaration that your life belongs to you, not to anyone else's expectations or judgments. When you take ownership of your story, you step into your power. You move through the world with purpose, confidence, and clarity, knowing that every choice you make is aligned with the person you want to be. The strength of standing alone is a profound and often underestimated force. In a world that emphasizes belonging and collective identity, the idea of being alone can feel daunting, even unnatural. But standing alone is not about isolation or rejecting connection. It is about the power that comes from trusting yourself, finding your own voice, and walking your own path. It is a declaration of independence and self-reliance, a refusal to compromise your values or authenticity for the sake of fitting in. Standing alone often begins with a choice. There comes a moment when you realize that the path others expect you to take does not align with your truth. This might mean choosing a career that defies traditional expectations, stepping away from a toxic relationship, or pursuing a passion that others dismiss as impractical. These choices can be lonely, but they are also liberating. They represent a commitment to living authentically, even when it means going against the grain. The strength to stand alone comes from within. It requires a deep sense of self-awareness and self-worth, qualities that are often cultivated through struggle and reflection. When you stand alone, you are forced to confront your fears and doubts without the comfort of external validation. This process can be uncomfortable, but it is also where growth happens. You learn to trust your instincts, rely on your own resilience, and draw strength from your inner resources. One of the most significant benefits of standing alone is the clarity it provides. When you are not swayed by the opinions or expectations of others, you can see your path more clearly. You can hear your own voice without the noise of outside influences. This clarity allows you to make decisions that are aligned with your values and goals, rather than those dictated by societal pressures or the desires of others. Standing alone also builds confidence. Each time you take a step forward on your own, you prove to yourself that you are capable. You discover that you can face challenges, overcome obstacles, and achieve your goals without relying on the approval or support of others. This confidence becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you trust yourself, the more capable you feel, and the more willing you are to take on new challenges. Standing alone does not mean rejecting connection or community. It is not about building walls or isolating yourself from others. Instead, it is about ensuring that the connections you make are rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. When you stand firmly in your truth, you attract relationships that support and honor your individuality. The strength of standing alone lies in its ability to empower you to live a life that is true to who you are. It teaches you that your worth is not determined by others and that you are enough, just as you are. Standing alone is not an act of defiance, it is an act of courage, self-love, and freedom. It allows you to walk through life with confidence and purpose, knowing that you are grounded in your own truth, no matter what challenges come your way.